How would they know that?
Because he had been in ASAP and apparently looked something up. I don't know.
He's a known drinker, yeah, but he's not. Nobody's going to deliberately, or very few people are going to deliberately drink themselves to death. And who's going to put themselves in a shower with a window open in below freezing weather and allow themselves to freeze to death?
Absolutely not. And so, they didn't even, the Army didn't even have the German report translated to English for over a year.
What was he?
Didn't even know what it said.
Well, when he turned blue and all that, was he was near death at that point in time?
Dead. Oh, he'd been dead for a long time.
Oh, he'd already been dead.
Yeah, he was in rigor mortis. And when they did the autopsy, we were told initially that he was a healthy 21-year-old who died of sudden unexpected death. And it was a couple months, and there was no drugs of any kind. But they didn't, of course, check for date rape drug. But they did say that, he had the high alcohol content. Now, the other two, the specialist and the sergeant that went out drinking with him, supposedly, did not have any alcohol on them.
They were tested by the German EMTs, and they had a 0.0 blood alcohol level.
So they took him out drinking, but they didn't drink?
Correct.
Yes.
That's very suspicious all by itself.
He got to a 0.42 blood alcohol level,
in an hour.
And neither of the two people with him had any blood alcohol.
Did they take him out to get him so drunk they could bring about his death?
I don't know. What we discovered was, this MP came up to the school, found the other two passed out, and they also asked her about if anybody was wearing, because they were really concerned about him going out in these PT clothes because it didn't sound right to one of the CID agents. And she said, they asked her, was anybody wearing any type of military clothing? And she said, yes. One guy had a chaplain symbol on his hat, and another guy had a captain symbol.
A chaplain and a captain?
Yeah, in the Mason group.
In the Mason group?
Must be. Everything, some of it's redacted, of course, names, but apparently there's a captain and a chaplain there. And then
who were at the bar or who at the death scene?
No, this is at the death scene at the school.
Well, not the death scene.
It's at school. Excuse me. And then when they went out drinking, a CID agent went to 3 bars that supposedly they took Anthony to. All 3 of them said, we would not allow him in PTs. Nobody's allowed in PTs.
So they wouldn't feed him. They wouldn't serve him drinks anyway.
Absolutely. And 2 of the managers said, we were on that night. We knew Anthony. He would not come in his PTs because he liked the women, and he came in always perfectly dressed, and he never caused any trouble at all.
He wanted to make the right impression on the girls.
Absolutely. And so we don't think he ever went out drinking. I think he was taken back to his room and provided alcohol in the shower. Can't prove that, though.
Part of the problem here is they immediately did an investigation, which we were not satisfied with, and immediately closed. And we complained and asked to have it reopened, and they reopened it. Now, what we found out after it was reopened was that all of the members of the Mason, because this became an issue.
The Masonic aspect came out in public?
Right.
Or at least in the investigation?
Let me back up even more. Part of the travesty here is we were contacted by a reporter from Stars and Stripes.
Okay.
And Stars and Stripes came out and did several different articles based on what Dee Dee and I told this reporter.
Good.
And they were, Stars and Stripes and this reporter were just absolutely castigated by worldwide members of the Masons, saying Masons do not do this. Absolutely did not happen. We were lying. We were making it up. Stars and Stripes.
Okay, you're telling me you basically gave them the story and they printed it straight. They didn't try to edit it, modify it, change it, misrepresent what you told them. You felt you got a fair shake in the paper in Stars and Stripes.
At that time. At that time, correct.
I mean, as far as you knew at that time, as far as you could get a straight,
that's right. Yes.
A fair shake given what you knew at that time.
Right. 2 days after Anthony's death, they performed the autopsy. This reporter from Stars and Stripes called us and gave us the results of the autopsy before the military did.
Tell me.
Weeks before the military.
Tell me
The
more. Tell me
military
more.
released the information to Stars and Stripes.
What did he tell you?
That it was just that it was inconclusive death, and it was going to be acute alcohol poisoning.
But that doesn't indicate whether it was voluntary or involuntary.
No.
They've never done anything to try to...
But we do have 2 witnesses, or CID did, that actually called them. Well, what one person called, and she said that she refused to provide her name or any identifying information, which makes it hard, but she stated that Anthony's death would have been prevented, and that the staff sergeant in charge of the Mason function actually forced Anthony to consume significant amount of alcohol at the ceremony, and she could provide information regarding his death.
Were you able to follow that up?
We couldn't. No, we couldn't find her, and they
we didn't find out about that till we got the report a year and a half later.
You mean she told this to an investigator and he put it in his report, but you didn't see the report for a year and a half?
Right, till we got it through the Freedom of Information Act. And then somebody else walked up to 2 of these guys, 2 CID members, and she was in he or she was in a restaurant, and stated that she knew that these men were investigating Anthony's death, and that she heard and could prove that alcoholic drinks were being served at the ceremony, and she was really afraid somebody was watching her, and she was really afraid. And
tell me about the alcoholic drinks being served at the ceremony. Which ceremony was this?
Well, the hazing.
The hazing.
Hazing.
Well, how was that related to going out to drink at the bars when he was in his PTs and they wouldn't let him in and wouldn't serve him, and then they went back to the barracks or wherever, and he wound up in the shower?
Just that this lady was saying that she could prove that one of the sergeants was forcing alcohol down him.
That night, the night he died?
It was not voluntary drinking.
The night he died?
Yes.
Correct.
So there was
the night he died.
Well, was this ceremony before or after they went out to the bars and he was in his PT?
Beforehand.
Oh, it was beforehand.
Right. Supposedly they went out for an hour after he was beaten so severely, I don't know how he could walk.
To celebrate the fact that he was now a 3rd-degree Mason.
And yet he had so much swelling in the brain, it pushed his brain down his spinal column. And the ME says that's from acute alcohol poisoning, even though our doctor in this area said it was probably because he was hit in the head. We've had 2 doctors tell us that.
One other thing I'd like to clarify.
The whole business about alcohol may be an attempt to create a phony cover, a camouflage for the actual cause of death.
Well, if you've got a captain there.
One of the other things I'd like to clarify in case there's a Mason that's listening to your show, all of the members of the Masons were interviewed by CID and admitted to it. We have it documented in all of these reports that all of these members admitted that he was hazed and was beaten. So if someone wants to call up or write a letter or say it doesn't happen because Masons don't do it, they admitted to it. They were charged with Article 15. Go ahead, Dee Dee.
They were charged with Article 15.
That's non-judicial punishment.
Well, they were charged, yes, but they told us that it was, the only thing they could charge him with was hazing. Let's see.
Well, originally they told us they were going to charge them with assault, and went through and said they all admitted to this. It wasn't until later we found out the other.
The other being the Article 15, or the drinking.
Right.
Correct.
And they charged him with hazing and, let's see, a couple other really dumb things. I mean, they got, reduction of pay.
How many?
Well, there were 3 of them, 2 sergeants and a specialist.
2 sergeants and specialists got a reduction in pay, and there was some kind of forfeiture.
Right. And 45 days of extra duty, and they got stripped of 1 rank. It never happened. They were all suspended, and they didn't tell us this. We found this out.
They didn't actually get the reduction in rank and so forth?
Somebody suspended it.
It was the punishment was suspended.
It was all suspended, and we were never told
by the commanding officer.
By anybody.
We don't know.
This was a fraudulent misrepresentation. They told you something had happened. It hadn't actually happened that way.